powered by Riverside.
Hello, and welcome into the SadFan, where we talk about the good, the bad, and everything that made us sad. And Wes, you've got a lot to talk about this week on what made you sad. You said you could go the full 45 minutes to an hour on what made you sad this week. So I'm just going to get it off really quick. Not you off. That'd be weird. I'm just going to kick us off really quick. I don't
think that's weird.
I don't know what happened there. Freudian slip, I guess. But I guess I'll start with, it makes me sad that I can't make fun of Florida State anymore, post Jimbo Fisher era, right? And they've been so bad for so long, and then they beat LSU on what was just a terrible end of game sequence. But I think I'm going to switch to making fun of Brian Kelly, because he came into LSU with so much bolster and so much fake swagger. And, I don't know if you know this, but he shot a TikTok video with a recruit for LSU, and then the recruit committed to like Miami or Alabama or something.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
so it's fantastic because he used
super awkward, super cringe.
Yeah, he used it to what was it? He used it for clout. He used Brian Kelly for clout, and then just committed somewhere else. And but yeah, we've had this opportunity to make fun of Florida State for so long now, ever since transition here, boys and girls. Willie Taggart got moved over there from where was he the coach of again?
He was the coach of Oregon, that little snake, for 1 year.
It's okay. You don't need a coach that runs around the sideline with a whistle around his neck still, because that is ridiculous, right? And that's Willie Taggart. But I think that leads us to something that made you sad this weekend, which was Oregon.
Well, we kind of got our asses kicked. Not gonna lie. We got stomped. I was down in Portland at the Grand Prix watching some IndyCar, and so I took a break to go watch the game at a bar, and I may have left after halftime because it was getting pretty bad. I was like, I'm just gonna go watch the cars and pretend that this isn't happening.
Did they have like 28 points by halftime? Georgia? 31.
It was 28-3, and I remember that because that was the Falcons score at the Super Bowl. I was like, hey, 28-3, an Atlanta team choking. I was like, it could happen, but obviously not.
Too bad they're from Athens.
Yeah, that was. It kind of reminded.
Hello.
Yeah.
Oh, look who made it.
Well, this is my sister, Chelsea. Hello, Ducks. Yeah, we were just talking about the Ducks.
Of course.
Yeah.
So Wes was going into how he walked out of
yeah.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. I'll stop interrupting.
Yeah, I walked out of the game at halftime.
That's about when I walked out as well, actually. But then I came back to the game kind of hoping that, we would get a chance to see Thompson play. That didn't happen. And I was like, well, shit, here's just like a waste of game. We didn't even get anyone else into the rotation. We just kind of kept our starting 11 in. It was kind of, I can see, my brother actually texted me today and was like, why the hate around, Lanning and everything that's going on? And I think some of the hate comes from like not even trying different rotations, not even trying something else out, seeing what works, Obviously, at that point, when you're down by that much, it's garbage time. So you throw in other players, get them some like worthwhile, reps, just get them used to being knocked down by these big Georgia dudes, like SEC defenses and stuff like that. But to like,
NFL
but to do nothing, not change it, not change your game plan, not change your strategy. I think it's kind of pathetic.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, I'm not judging him too bad, because this kind of brings me back 13 years ago to when Chip Kelly first debuted, and we got smoked by Boise State, which, by the way, would get absolutely boat raced by this Georgia team, let's be honest. And, that game was pathetic, and then everyone was like, fire Chip Kelly after one game, and you would end up changing our program.
To be fair, though, Boise State has always been one of those teams that like comes out of nowhere and has all those like sneaky little plays, those little tricks. Like I actually, as much as I hated them while I was like going to Oregon, I actually come to respect them as like just a general college football fan because it's like, well, you know, like they've got their thing. They like sometimes just sneak out those big wins and kudos to them. But I mean, at the same time, it sucks to be like the team that they're playing.
You mean a gimmicky blue field?
The blue field sucks.
So they're the last team outside of Eastern Washington that was allowed to do the colored field because of the blue field. So, yeah, teams like Oregon came out and was like, this is a distraction. This is why we're so bad at playing them at home. And,
right, because so green uniforms on a green field, you know, isn't awful to play against either or anything.
Yeah. So,
I mean, we only wear green like what once a year.
Really quick, we want to welcome in Taylor.
Hi, Taylor.
We were able to get her in. Taylor, this is Chelsea. She's visiting us for some Oregon chatter. Not a lot going on with Live Golf, but she is Wes's sister, but also one of our fans. She listened to last week's podcast and was like, I have so much to say about that.
I do. I had like so many things where I was listening and I was just like, you know, I was just watching you guys talk, but at the same time I was like, damn it. Like if I was on, I could say like, you know, the Live Golf trophy looks like the identical picture of like the Twin Towers falling over. It's things like that. You know, I just always have like these little tidbits from just spending way too much time on Twitter these days. Like, yeah, too much. There's nothing to do in Texas other than like just read about what else is going on out in the world. So
that's actually very true. Coming from like living right on the border of Texas, it's literally like, do you want to shop or stay home? Those are your choices.
Yeah, and your shopping is like the HEB, like the rundown, like Fiesta Market, or like, you know, going balls to the wall and going to like the TJ Maxx. Like, great. I spend more time at like Home Depot than, you know, Nordstrom these days.
Before we get too far down that rabbit hole, go ahead, Taylor. Sorry.
Oh, I was just curious what I missed.
So
we were just talking about what made me sad, and that was that Oregon got their asses drilled into the ground by Georgia, literally a team full of
I thought what was
going
to make you sad was that I stole Tom Brady from you, but it's okay.
Oh.
Wes's team is number one, but fantasy chatter, we don't want to do that. The audience will go to sleep on us. We'll have to do it when things get a little heated. But yes, Taylor and Wes, I think, are the two top-rated teams in the league. Go ahead, Chelsea. Sorry.
Wait, I'm sorry. You guys are having a fantasy league, and I wasn't invited.
It's our inaugural team.
Okay, all right. Noted.
I'm sorry.
It was very last minute, Chelsea, in everyone's defense. Yeah.
It's fine. It's totally fine. I get it. But you're right. Fantasy sleep, it like puts everyone to sleep.
I'll give you my login, and you can run my team for me.
Wes is
it'll give me something to do
here. Wes is checked out, Chelsea. And he's checked out, I think, because I didn't want to get too far before going back in, like I said, down the rabbit hole. But Taylor hit us with that Tom Brady.
Sure.
And it sent us right back into the chatter. But yeah, so like Wes said, we were talking about what made Wes sad, which was the Oregon Georgia game. What was funny to me though is one, I was heckling Wes the whole game. I can't help myself. But we had a podcast a while back, and Taylor could speak to this. I told him, I was like, "This is going to be a bad coach," and she's like, and Wes like, "You don't even know. And I was like, I don't know, man. I don't like coaches that come from coaches.
I still think he's going to be a bad coach.
So here's the thing. I'm just not a fan of coaches.
I still think you're wrong, and I think you'll realize you're wrong by that.
He's a defensive coordinator that's come from a slew of really good defensive coordinating head coach or defensive centralized head coaches, except for Kirby Smart. And that's super rare for those coaches that turn out to be really good because typically they're operating – like look at Bill Belichick's tree. It's not great. So the other thing is with that team is you took Bo Nix, who was awful, and you were kind of excited about Bo Nix.
Well, Bo Nix was terrible. And we never tried anything else. I was never
I was never excited about this guy.
No.
One, he's like, what, 25 or something? Like, he's old for college.
60 starter.
But like,
25. He's old.
He's old for like a college kid, and he hasn't learned shit the entire time he's been in college. Like he's just. I'm sorry.
You expected somebody who went to college for football to also learn something other than football?
That's not quite fair. That's not quite fair. Speaking as someone who's worked closely with a lot of student athletes, like while I was in college, but
no. I know a lot of them do, and that's super cool that a lot of them actually take the time to like put in effort and get a degree in something. That way, when eventually they get injured or have to retire, they can like do some other things with their lives and be productive in society. But I will say, I feel like a majority of the people who go to school for football, they're banking on football.
Especially in the SEC.
Yeah. Well, I will say with COVID, there are a lot of like 6th-year players right now because they got a red shirt and they got a COVID year. So they're like getting their entire like master's paid for right now, which is really cool.
So
really
he isn't the only one, but I will say that I feel like this is Scam Newton 2.0, like where Oregon is just getting, try to keep it PG-13 here again, blitzed by Auburn again by another just piece of garbage. Like, he's not a great person, first of all. Like, he's being like sued for child support in like 3 different states. Like, you know.
Oh wow.
Let me catch the
some,
audience.
Like, Instagram girl.
Chelsea, let me catch the audience up. Chelsea just took a shot at the national championship. If those of you weren't paying attention, the Cam Newton Auburn team versus Chip Kelly's Oregon Ducks, and Oregon's very sour about that. Every time I bring it up, West gets mad. So that was a good shot. It was super below the radar, but we got to keep fans. Taylor had no idea.
Fire was down.
Why is Auburn an enemy of Oregon? That was a shot at the national championship game. That
we're not. I won't say they're enemies. They're not enemies. Like, we definitely. It was a great national championship game, right? Like back in the day, but like it's just. The SEC doesn't, like, they produce great athletes, but the quality and character of the people coming out of those schools, I mean, you know, we've got, like, Herschel Walker, Scam Newton, you know, we've got, like, plenty of examples of, like, who these guys actually are, and it's just kind of...
fair. That's not fair. He did one thing as a 19-year-old.
He got kicked out of Florida.
For stealing a laptop at 19 years old, and he's...
Yeah,
all right, he's been a model citizen.
That's a pretty big deal, stealing a laptop.
I mean, these days, stealing a laptop pretty much amounts to grand theft. It's like over $1,000 for any laptop these days.
Oh my god! Yeah. Tell me about it. I actually had to log in last night.
Thank you.
She's right. I had to log in last night because I had to buy this new laptop because I was teaching a class and I have a little slip in my backpack that was where you put your laptops, and I spun around my backpack to put it on my back, and the laptop went. And I was like, no, exactly.
Oh, no.
And one of my students was like, why are you so calm right now? I'd be freaking out. I was like, because what am I going to do? What am I going to do? It happened. There's nothing I can do.
That's a good answer.
Because I'm not paying for it.
I was like, I don't know.
You can't be mad at yourself at that point. Like when someone else does it, you want to be mad at them because you're like, fuck you, you ruined my shit. But like when you do it to yourself, you just have that moment of like, fuck me, I'm an idiot.
I was pretty upset.
Yep, we've all been there.
So now I've got to figure out this one and make sure everything's good. And I logged on early last night. But a lot of people have logged on early to make comments about the 12-team playoff, which doesn't start till 2026. And because we're talking about Oregon and Georgia, and they're probably going to be perennial characters within this 12-team playoffs, I didn't want to get – I keep getting off track. Kirby Smart said they just have better players than Oregon, and I hope that causes future rivalries in recruiting, amongst other things. Sorry, I just wanted to get that in. If you get the chance to read that article, that was literally Kirby Smart's response to beating the hell out of Oregon was, we just have better players. He basically said every Oregon sucks.
I mean, Obviously.
No, screw that. Okay, because USC.
I mean, we lost half of our recruiting class last year.
USC and Texas dominated college football for like 3 years, 4 years. Like, I don't want to hear about it, especially now with NIL, like we talked about. Like, all they've done is buy players, and now it's legal for everyone, right? Because think about it. If your biggest export is the University of Alabama, okay, you're not going to be a reporter that brings down the University of Alabama. You're not going to be that guy. So they've been doing it for
that's fair.
So now we have a 12-team playoff.
I mean, they had 15 players go to the NFL last year. I mean, like, when was the last time, like, aside from Alabama, like, it's pretty much it's like Ohio State, Georgia, and Alabama right now, and they're just leagues ahead of everybody.
Oh, we don't have to talk about how
like,
it is
pretty.
Ohio.
No, I think we all know that. But it is really hard to find like a 300-pound 18-year-old who is also fit and muscular and ready to, like, you know, haul ass on the football field. There aren't that many of them to go around, even though, you know, like, the recruiting.
You got to go to the Midwest for those boys.
Corn-fed, like, you know, gravy-eating babies. But, you know, yeah, of course they're going to go to, like, where the teams already specialize in having those big boys. You know, you've seen it time and time again where, like, these West Coast teams, like, even a USC, an Oregon, a Washington, you know, whatever, they get, like, one or two of these big guys. They don't know what to do with them. So they're just kind of like you know, they can't build a defense around two guys, especially on defense where they have to switch them out a lot more rather than on, like, offense. So, I mean, of course, these big guys are going to go to, you know, their Ohio States, their Alabamas, their Georgias, you know, whatever is going to fit kind of their mold and also whatever people are kind of pushing them into. But that being said, Oregon still had an amazing couple of recruiting years. There's no reason that we shouldn't have been competitive in this game, at least to some point, like at least getting an actual touchdown, for Pete's sake, like, on the board. It is embarrassing.
It was an embarrassing game. It was an embarrassing game. But Taylor, where we're from in LA, that's where Oregon was recruiting from for these big players when Chip Kelly was there, and that's why everyone thought when he went to UCLA that he was going to have an amazing team. He just doesn't have a quarterback. The team's okay, but I think, you know, you're in school in LA. There's some big dudes out there that are still athletes. They're just in
like, of course you go there. Like, you go and find out the gems. They find the hidden gems.
What are you going to say, Taylor?
I definitely would agree that the football players seem quite large out here, but that might have something to do with the fact that I always felt like the guys in my high school growing up were, like, scrawny, very small. So that might have to do with that. As far as, like, recruiting from this area, or, like, I want to say the maybe not so great areas out here, I think that kind of makes a lot of sense, because you often hear those stories, those success stories about this person who had to work their ass off their whole life and struggled and didn't have money growing up to, like, make something of themselves. And, like, those are the kinds of people who succeed in fields like that, or the people who are going to push through and work through all of the struggles and strife that is thrown at them in life. And those people are handed a lot of shitty cards, and they figure out how to make it work.
Football's a way out. Football's a way out. Completely agree. And, you know, it is an opportunity that it is there. And, you know, this is why, you know, obviously we made some jokes about, like, people going to college for football and not for academics. But, like, the fact of the matter is, like, it is a ticket to, you know, raising themselves up. Another area that Oregon has had a lot of, Oregon specifically, but also some other teams like BYU and such, have had a lot of success with, with the Pacific Islands, like, yeah, Samoans from Guam, from Hawaii, just those big boys. But they're still,
yeah. Sorry.
Who saw the dog? Who saw the dog?
We talk about it. You gotta watch.
Everyone but me.
I know I just posted it, Chelsea, but you gotta check out. We did talk about it. Wes and I had to apologize because we were definitely in a jocular environment where we weren't the nicest to Manti Te'o.
Yeah, we definitely ragged on him.
That's a sad story, I will say. Like, just hearing the whole thing, but I think, you know, it's kind of hard when you just hear, like, sad Mormon kid gets catfished, you're kind of like, yeah.
Yeah.
The whole story is a lot more.
Yeah, I don't want to go back an episode, but yes, we didn't know anything about it. We didn't know what catfishing was, and we do now. We're
just trying to, raise him up at every opportunity that we get now.
Yeah, exactly. Now we make sure people know, because he's doing some really good things. Where I wanted to go with that, though, with this is, and Chelsea kind of touched on it, so thank you for segueing for me. I think my opinion is not the same as many other people's when it comes to the college football playoff, okay? That combined with NIL, the expansion of the college football playoff combined with NIL, I think is actually going to create a more competitive recruiting field, because now more teams can make it in. So now you don't have to choose between 4 schools that are going to make it into the playoff every year, right? By 2026, Chelsea, it's going to be the 12 teams. So, now you have to choose between 4 teams to get in. And you can get paid at any school. Right. And with social media, you can market yourself anywhere. Like the gymnast at LSU, she's still famous. The one that was the highest paid athlete in NIL immediately. She's no longer the highest paid, but she's everywhere now post NIL. Like, I see her everywhere, and she's only like 20 years old. I see articles about her all the time, and I'm like, I would have never known who this person was without NIL. And she goes to LSU, which is a decent sized university. So, Wes, what do you think? Do you think I'm wrong? Do you think it's going to be the usual suspects here, or do you think that this is going to open up recruiting?
Well, we'll see. We'll see. I mean, because there's definitely going to be like a lot more interesting teams that make it in, and it's going to be different to root for. Yeah. And I think the first few years, you're still going to be like a lot of those 12th, 11th, 10th, 9th, 8th, 7th, 6th teams that make it in are probably just going to get boat raced. But I think over the years, it'll create more parity.
Cincinnati put up a pretty good fight against Arkansas. I don't know.
At least that's my hope.
Chelsea, go. I see you have something to say, so go ahead. But yeah, Cincinnati did put up a fight against Arkansas.
Yeah, I was just going to say, so as we kind of see the advent of this change in the playoff system, we're also seeing a huge change in the conferences, and that can't be overlooked, right? Because we're ending up with a potential situation of having these mega conferences, right? Which is going to just kind of, as it usually does, the cream of the crop are just going to be at the very top of those conferences, and they're going to be fighting each other for, first and second, and then into these playoff spots. So, I mean, is it actually going to create parity, or are we just really kind of going to see the same teams over and over again who are rising up to the very top of these mega conferences where they don't even have to play each other? I mean, look at some of the SEC schedules. They're ridiculous. They're not playing each other. They don't have very hard, they might have 1 or 2 difficult games, but they don't have the stacked competition that, 5-6 years ago, the SEC really was, everyone's just eating each other alive. It's just cannibalism, which was good for some people, but it really did allow some people, some teams to sneak up and kind of just find their way on top. I think that we're just going to see something a little bit different with these mega conferences, and so I kind of have to just disagree a little bit that I think we're going to see parity. Really, we're definitely going to see more variety with this larger playoff field, but not necessarily teams you don't see every day.
I think what they're shooting for.
Well, I think when you get to 12th, 11th, 10th, those teams are going to be constantly rotating. Yeah, the top 4, top 6 teams are going to be the same teams probably every year. Your Clemson, Ohio State, maybe Michigan, and then Alabama, Georgia. But then it'll be interesting because the Pac. Well, who knows where the fuck the Pac is going to be? I mean, because it's going to be gone.
It's not going to exist.
Most likely, but yeah.
So I think the purpose of all this, though, is for people like Taylor to actually get interested, right? So it's almost like March Madness. Taylor, you've heard of March Madness at a minimum, right?
Yes.
Sorry. Yes, we're an audio medium now too. But yes, for the audience that was not watching, she was nodding her head for a solid 2 seconds before she said yes. But yeah, so
I mean,
for folks like you,
that's about
go
it.
ahead. Okay, yeah, but
No, I
for
was
folks
just
like
saying,
you, that's what's
basketball,
important.
That's about it.
But that's all they want. That's the audience they want, is people that know. And I think it's going to be the same with the college football playoff. The more schools you get involved, you get that what America is soaked in, right? We're soaked in nationalism. True. Like when we're in the Olympics, when we're in the World Cup, which is, again, we're going to transition here in just a second, we drape ourselves in the flag, you know? We really do. We wrap ourselves in that flag and we're like, yes, we're all unified finally for one thing. We want to see that flag atop all the other flags at a minimum. And I think it's the same with our universities. Because if you travel outside the country, many other countries are kind of taken aback. They're like, why do you guys root for universities? Like, who cares? And they don't understand, like, the pageantry and yeah, the what is almost nationalism we put behind these colors, these teams, as far as our university is concerned. I think that's where we're going to go. And go ahead, Taylor.
I got to be honest, as a not sports person, I do find it a little weird when people who like didn't go to a university or a certain school or aren't from a particular area are still very heavily invested in a team that seemingly has nothing to do with them. Like, I get it when you go to school, like that makes sense. You want to be a part of something. You're a part of this, university. Everybody that you go to class with is somehow like tied to this team. That makes sense. I get that. You live in a town right next to a college town. I get it. I don't understand like having a desire to root for a team that is on the other side of the country where you don't know any of the players. You don't know any of the people there. That is a lot for me.
So my brother is a huge Oregon fan. He never went to Oregon, but I mean, we did grow up in Eugene, to be fair. But
yeah, I grew up pretty much my entire life.
But you can also like
Oregon,
fandom. The interesting thing about fandom, is that sometimes you marry into it. Sometimes you have a friend that went there, just for different reasons, and you kind of find yourself like attached to that team, and even like kind of still hold on to that fandom like for a while, and it's fun, especially if they're like successful or if they have unique like tailgating traditions or like I had a friend who I'm not friends with anymore who went to UVA. I love that school. I love Charlottesville. I love that school. I will, if we're playing them, I'm probably like, if Oregon's playing them, it's fun. It's just fun because I can like be kind of like on both sides, and it's one of those things that like, University of Virginia and Charlottesville.
There we go.
Like, it's just, but I mean, they're not a particularly great team most of the time for most of their sports. But, it's a fun.
I think they're in the SEC now. Are they in the SEC now, Wes?
No, they're still in the ACC. They're still ACC.
Bid though, I think they got a bid.
I mean, they're pretty good in basketball though.
Do they really?
They're still ACC.
Yeah.
I think
we're going to need some fact checking on this.
We need to fact check it, but I remember Chris Long, who's probably the best football player to ever come out of the University of Virginia. Chris Long posted something about it because he was making fun of Virginia Tech. I think Wes is pulling it up now. I think our research department is going crazy over there.
Yeah. I mean, so there was like a headline in July that like the University of Virginia, North Carolina, Florida State, and Clemson were talking to the SEC, but there's nothing that came out of it.
Okay, and
it
Taylor was
sources, so
shaking as well. Okay, cool. Thank you, Taylor and Wes. I saw both heads shaking.
According to the always reliable Wikipedia, the Cavaliers compete at the NCAA Division I level in the Atlantic Coast Conference since 1953, and there is no change or update.
Okay, good. So yeah, but I wasn't completely wrong. So they were in talks to join the SEC, but nothing came of it. But yeah, so that was wild.
It still might, but yeah.
Funny. It will. You were not wrong in the super conferences, and I think we've got about 13 minutes left. So I want to get to a topic that was kind of on the fence, right? It was actually a headlining topic for one of the shows a while back, which was the No Fun World Cup. because they were going to allow no sex at the World Cup. See, good, taking it back to nationalism. You guys thought I forgot about the transition, but
unless you're married.
Unless you're married, Wes. Remember, if you don't share the same surname, they're going to make you get a separate hotel room. So there was that. Sorry,
that's ridiculous.
Yeah, I'm making sure you guys hear me in my ear. I can hear when it goes through to your guys' headphones. And then they weren't going to serve beer or alcohol, which was one of the stipulations of why FIFA was going to have it in Qatar in the stadiums. Well, Qatar officially announced that they have reached an agreement to allow beer and alcohol within the stadiums. So, I mean, can we still have fun?
I'm genuinely curious about what the exact rules for this will be, because it's a dry country, correct? Like, yes. You can't drink alcohol anywhere. So does that mean that the people who actually then live in the country can still enter the stadium and purchase alcohol? Do you need like a passport for another country?
Completely.
No, hold on. Can I just interrupt here as someone who has traveled through the Middle East? I'm pretty sure that Doha is very similar to Dubai, where in the streets, like in general, in the restaurants and everything like that, you can't drink there. But in any of the tourism areas, like the hotels and some of like the strips of like cafes and things like that, you can drink, but it is very separate. It's very segregated from, kind of like where like the main populace really is and where they eat and, go out to restaurants and things like that. It is very distinct and very separate. But to say that it's dry, I'm not 100% sure. Because Doha is a big city and it's very lucrative for tourism. But I have a feeling that this, absolute clampdown on alcohol sales, as ridiculous as it is, as pathetic as it sounds, is probably stopping tourism, when in fact what should have really stopped tourism was the fact that the whole stadiums were built by slaves. But that's a whole other other topic.
Oh, I mean, we talked about that.
We did. We covered that. I think Wes gave us the exact number in that podcast. If you guys want to go back, look at the No Fun World Cup episode of the SadFan. But yeah,
hundreds of people died.
I think you gave us the exact number of deaths, Wes. I think you Googled and it's not even the exact. I think it's just recorded deaths.
Well, so there's a recorded deaths, which is like below 100, and then there's like what's been like reported through non-official sources, which is like in like over 1,000.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Chelsea, to touch on that. I don't ever want to talk about these things without commenting.
It's like going to a nudie bar here. It's like not really something that we are like, let's have everybody go and do that. We let people do it, but like maybe go do it over there.
Exactly. But there's no like clamp down on it. It's just kind of as long and everyone, is chauffeured. Okay, so
then I'm imagining that they'll be able to go into the stadium and drink as well.
Is what it sounds like is the change in the rules. Like that the FIFA stadiums will actually allow.
Well, no. I knew that like that meant obviously tourists could, but I was just curious about the people who actually are from there, live there. I would imagine though their religion might play some part in why they don't drink in the first place, so they probably want to for a lot of them anyway, but to each their own.
You'd be surprised what happens behind closed doors though.
I wouldn't.
Suddenly a lot of those rules just
I watch a lot of true crime. I would not be surprised.
True crime. I can't skip right past the fact that Taylor very timidly called them nudie bars. That was really funny. That's why I was
like a strip club. You can't like necessarily take your top off if you're, depending on what you're doing. And so
guys,
if they're serving alcohol, they can't be nude.
Yeah.
Where's this?
I mean, that also depends on state.
It's like there's different.
She's right. In New Mexico. In New Mexico, in California, you're totally right, Taylor, because there is one bar, and I've never been to it, but I saw the sign for it. Like, there's a big billboard in Los Angeles, and it's like the only nude bartenders in Los Angeles. And I was like, how's that possible? You're not allowed to do that. And I was thinking, and my buddy, who had never been to it, somehow he knew, was like, oh, they get away with it with body paint. And I was like, with body paint? He's like, yeah, because body paint is technically covering you up.
Creative.
Wow. I love it. Yeah, so there are stipulations like that where if you're serving alcohol, they can't be like completely nude or something. I don't remember exactly what the rule is, but if they're serving alcohol,
Is that for like hygiene purposes?
That's how New Mexico was.
I think so. Yeah, I think so.
No, I think
it's for security.
I don't know, because New Mexico, you can only be topless if you served alcohol.
Oh,
so all the fully nude places were
you nailed it. Sorry, you got
were dry. Yeah, all the fully nude strip clubs were dry.
That's what it is. And then like topless bars are they can serve alcohol, but that's just that they can only take the top off. And I don't think they do like lap dances or any of that shit either if they're serving alcohol. It's just like dances, like dancing, you know?
Yeah.
So I think it's similar to that where like, you know, they kind of have their own stipulations and whatnot. But for this, since we're talking about sports, I think that it'll be a similar situation where, like, since they're serving alcohol there, people can buy alcohol even if they're from the country. That's what I was wondering.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think also
pole dancing is a sport.
so the country's already like Chelsea had said, it is a sport. ESPN 8 the Ocho. Check out that episode. We did it with Joshua Berkeley from Gore. But I think the thing is, this country already has not a sterling reputation, right? And they're trying to sports wash a lot of things. Like Live Golf is trying to sports wash, like UFC is trying to sports wash the Emirates. Like there's a lot of these countries that have done really terrible, especially to journalism, right? Especially to free press. Especially to women, especially to educated women in particular. These countries are trying to soak that all away. And I'm not saying everyone's bad. I don't want to be misconstrued or taken out of context. But what I am saying is these countries don't have the best reputation. And I think what they're trying to do is if they can keep the areas dry, which was not in their agreement with FIFA originally 4 years ago, but if they can keep the areas dry, then there's less of a chance of something going wrong between the locals and tourists. Because that's the last thing you need is an international incident where, you know, a fan from this country says something to a local from this country, and then alcohol is involved, and then things just escalate. I think that's...
And then you get a bunch of tourists.
I got you, Taylor. Hold on.
You also get a bunch of tourists in jail when you try to tell them that they can't do the shit that they do normally, like drink alcohol and stuff, and then they get
smuggled in
and tell you, who the fuck are you? So, I mean, yeah. I think that's always a possibility. People are going to be stupid if they want to be stupid. That's just kind of how it is. I think that, like, you know, when you go to a different country, you're supposed to respect their rules no matter where you are and what the deal is. So if they have rules, you should be abiding by them. I think the difference with this comes in the fact that, like, they're not a fully dry country, like Chelsea said. They have alcohol available. So to then try to deprive all the tourists at this big event that they're paying a ton of money for to go and fly and see and do and spend money in your country, I think that would cause a problem.
Right. And also,
go ahead, Chelsea.
I was just going to talk about, like, the population makeup of like Qatar, of the Emirates. Like, the Emirates are 13% Emirati. Everyone else is just literally imported into the city of gold. Same with Qatar. Like, Doha is a huge magnet for people all over to just kind of come into the city and work. You know, there's a lot of not great paying jobs, but there's also a lot of, like, you know, big oil companies in there who are importing their talent from the United States, from, you know, the UK, from Australia, Malaysia, Indonesia, the Philippines. You know, all these people are coming into these countries. So, I mean, when we talk about the locals, let's be really clear. The locals are very, like, they're outnumbered, like, at least 5-1 in most of these countries.
Can't possibly have, like, the majority of the money and, like, enough money to live there. I feel like the majority of those people who have the billions of dollars have to be from, like, around the world.
No, it's oil money.
It's
oil money.
Yeah. So the way that these systems work actually is that they take all the profits and all the tax and it's redistributed to the people who are actually from there. So yes, the people who are like Emirati, for example.
If you live in Dubai, I imagine, yes, you're those rich people. If you live in the surrounding area of Dubai,
you're talking about the people they had build the stadiums?
Well, those were all imported.
Exactly. Your laborers are not going to be from, they're not Qatari. They're from these other areas because they were offered, you know, various things. And then when they flew in, they took their passports and they were like, no, you work for us. But yeah, I mean, the way that these systems work, it's kind of like what we see on a much bigger scale, but in Alaska, like where if you live there, you get money redistributed to you every year and you get like a basic income basically from it.
I think I have a better comp for you. And yeah, Taylor, that is exactly what you were saying. That's what you meant. I heard you say, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, it's the imports that end up never being able to leave.
Yeah.
It's ones that live on the outskirts. Yeah, Taylor, that's exactly what she was saying. But I think a better comp to that, Chelsea, would be Indian reservations, Native American reservations that have casinos. The tribal casinos, the money is supposed to be distributed evenly throughout the tribe that they make from the casinos, and that's why they're allowed to have it.
Exactly.
Exactly, and it's the same. Yeah, it's the same. Like we like to think like in the Emiratis on the reservations, but then they'd all be floating high. But there's some that we all know about that are floating a little bit higher than others. Oh, yeah. So anyway, we've got only a couple minutes left, and I do want to let everybody know the NFL will be a thread throughout the weeks, but this is our last week before football season has started for the NFL. So allow us some time to enjoy some college football, to talk about international football and some of the things that we're seeing. And I promise you, we did talk about the NFL a little bit the week before this, as you guys will see on the episode that drops tonight for me, tomorrow for all of you. And we're going to talk about the NFL in coming weeks. So don't worry, all my zealots that dropped into my mentions, like, yes, the NFL is coming. I know it's a freight train without wheels, without brakes. It just goes. It just slides into everything that it stands in its way. But I do want to take these last couple minutes to say a goodbye to two absolute legends of the sports world, not female sports world, of the entire sports world. All right? Serena Williams put on a show for all of us this week.
Amazing.
And yes, eliminated the number 2 player, and yes, she did go out the game after, but she's a mother and she's in her 40s. Like we said, Taylor and I were doing a podcast with Josh. She's been playing since 1995.
Grand Slam championships. We do not need to justify anything this woman has done.
No.
Yeah.
So that legend, I want to make sure we all acknowledge her, and then Sue Bird said goodbye to the WNBA. And sorry, Wes. I know you were hoping for Seattle for the Swan Song. I'm a Las Vegas Aces fan.
Yeah.
And they got him. But yeah, I love Sue Bird. So I think I even said in the podcast, it's a lose-lose for me. If the Aces lose, my ladies lose, and if the Seattle Storm lose, then Sue Bird loses. So it was a lose-lose, but it was beautiful. I'll let my two folks from Seattle go, and I'll let Taylor have the last word before we give our media information. Go ahead, Chelsea.
So with just one word on Serena, I would say it was devastating to see her go out. But at the same time, she was talking about how like players like her, who looked like her, who were her, just were not on the court and just disrespected at every single turn. And in the same tournament, you saw Coco Gauff at 18. Yep. She is a meteor. She is like going to be something in tennis. I think it's just awesome to see like kind of that handing of the baton to the next generation. It was just beautiful tennis. And I miss being in New York City right now because I can't be at the Open. I miss it. But
one of the coolest things that I saw from that weekend was Tiger Woods was in the stands rooting her on. And it was like these two like generational talents in their own sport who kind of like broke the color barrier for like these traditional white sports, like white country club sports.
For sure.
And not only did Serena break the barrier for like women in the sport, but just this past weekend, what's his name? Francis Tifo also had an upset and won.
Oh yes, on the men's side.
Beat Rafael Nadal in a match as well. So like paving the way for everybody here.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. It's happening. It's the future. It's great. It's beautiful to see.
Yeah.
So I am so sorry to all you barbarians. We're going to continue to support female sports out here and female athletes. And like I said, regardless of gender, regardless of sport, these are legends of this world that we like to get lost in, that gives us hope for all things, as Chelsea alluded to, that shows us like we can too do these things because these people actually broke the barriers. That's it for our show today. We're going to end it with that. Thank you, Serena. Thank you, Sue Bird, for everything you gave us, for all the walls you broke down. If you would like to reach the show, you could reach us on our YouTube channel at the SadFan Media Group. You can reach me at the SadFan, and you can reach the show at the SadFan Pod. Wesley's still unavailable, but Chelsea, you joined us as a guest today. Where can they reach you, just so we can promote you?
Oh, I actually don't like promoting myself. Yeah, all of my social media is anonymous.
Soccer, it seems like a family trait.
Yeah.
Taylor, where can they reach you?
Well, since you can't find Wes anywhere, you can find me at It's Taylor Stone on all the things.
I do promise you, Wes does get the messages. I relay them to him, and if messages go directly to Wes via text messages, he will relay them to me. Please, Taylor and I talk constantly as well. If you reach out to her, that's cool too. But get on, subscribe, rate, review us. Tell us what we can do better. If you tell us you want less women's sports, I don't care. Like, you're not a fan I need. But outside of that, thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks for having me on again.
Bye.
Bye.
Of course.
Yeah.